Hi, my name is Peggy Oberthier. I'm a medical intuitive based in Melbourne, Australia. I'm very excited to have Guy Lawrence on my show today. He has given me this amazing opportunity to speak to him and hear his story. In his bio, he just said, introduce me as a Welshman. So we're just going to roll with it, Guy. You're a Welshman, you're an expat like me. Tell me a little bit about how do you actually describe your bio? What would you say your role is?
It's almost like I'm a wayshower or a treasure hunter. And I say Welshman, I said to say it like that because I always strive to keep everything as grounded as possible. We're in a world where I think everyone's reaching outside themselves and reaching for the etheric and reaching that, like there's a big spiritual movement and
Mm,
it's all out there. It's all up like, let me grasp this utopia nirvana. And it's actually the more grounded we are, the deeper the roots we have, then the more we can actually start to grow and be stronger in our foundations. But we seem to forget that. And so that's why I tongue-in-cheek said that. But as I introduce myself, it's really, I'd really struggle with it, to be honest with you, as you would know. If people are on the outskirts, I say, oh, I run retreats and I'm a facilitator. I never try to use the word healer in any
mm,
shape or form, because ultimately we heal ourselves,
mm,
So, and then if they poke questions and start asking, I kind of lead into, depending on how far down the rabbit hole somebody gets to it. But most people are really open. It's very rarely, so they're like, oh, what do you mean? Like breath work or meditation or sound or yoga? It's kind of in the consciousness psyche of most people these days. So it's not that out. But ultimately, yeah, I am a way shower because I feel like I've done a lot with myself, and I still
mm,
continue to. I really bring
mm.
in. I really think humility is the key to most of this work and beginner's mind. And that through that pathway, it opens up more and more. But there's been obstacles in my journey. I've just turned 50. So it's like I think there's enough water under the bridge where I know I can actually help others along the way to say, well, I would go down this path, not that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, we have to take radical responsibility for ourselves. And
Mm.
when people are ready to do that and help themselves, I'm happy to help them along their journey.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a lot more questions about that. But I want to go back because you haven't introduced yourself as a podcast host. And I have to tell
Yeah.
that's something else that you've done. I've listened to, so how many episodes have you actually produced now?
I think on my Let It In, because I've been podcasting since
Yes.
2013, because there
Yes,
was
I've listened
my
to
old
those too.
company, 180
Yeah.
Nutrition,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but with Let It In, I started February 2018. I remember
Yeah.
that much. And I think I'm up to 350 something episodes,
Yeah.
just chipping away. And again, podcast, it feels a bit egoic if I say, oh, I'm a
Yeah.
podcaster.
Yeah.
And that, like, it's almost like I feel like I'm trying to pitch somebody to listen
Yeah.
to my podcast where
Yeah.
I just put it out there. So I think that's why I don't say that much. But if it comes up in the conversation again,
Yeah.
I'll mention it,
And just with like 50,000 subscribers, which is actually pretty impressive. And I know I admire humility, which is one of the reasons why, I was quite drawn to your work. But I've listened to so many of the podcasts, and there's a few key phrases that you say over
Right.
and over again. And you actually already said one, which is great. But so I want to unpack a little bit of your story with using some of those key phrases you always use. So one of them is no pressure, no diamond. Another one is where the rubber meets the road. I think you've said that a lot of times. Down the rabbit hole, yes. And also you have to do the work, mate. Yeah. Like you've talked about the work. So I'd like to kind of structure the podcast a little bit by unpacking
Wow.
some of those key
I love
phrases.
it. I love it.
Okay.
I'm like, shit, what do I say? But yeah,
You say those
you're
a
spot
lot.
on. I do.
You say
I
that.
do.
Um, and you always say, like, I'm just a Welshman from, I'm just a rugby player. I'm just a rugby player. And you just sort of, and you refer to your story a lot, actually, in your interviews, especially in the earlier ones. I think, I think no pressure, no diamond is probably a really good way to start. How do you link that particular phrase with your early beginnings?
Wow. Because I've through a vast majority of my life, I actually felt there was a pressure,
Mm,
external pressure pushing inward.
mm,
And I I could not for the love nor money put my finger on what it was. It was like it's like your soul, there's the soul part of you, which I feel like I've been connected to ever since I can
Mm,
remember.
mm,
But I couldn't articulate it anyway. I couldn't speak about it. I didn't, it was just in my awareness, if that makes sense. There was like
mm,
this people always say, guy, you're a deep thinker. You're kind of in that category where I never thought I was just like being, but that pressure actually forced me to really start to look within in ways, but
mm,
I was looking externally for a long time first.
yeah.
And without it, I would not be in a place where I am now. Like I pinch myself every day. My heart is open.
Mm,
I love my family dearly. Like I
mm,
love everything, and I actually fill in with gratitude as often as I can. And if I
mm,
find myself in judgment or things triggering me, it doesn't knock me anymore, and I catch myself, and I'll
mm,
explore it or walk away from it, and allow my body to just let it go and say, okay, well, what's there? Let's have a look at this. How can
mhm,
I see this? So when I was I would constantly, especially when I was in the thick of my 180 days, the supplement company that was doing really well, I knew I was unhappy, and I'd constantly have this vision of coal and with the diamond within the coal. And I was like, okay, I'm just literally just all this shit and brush it like this pay this like I just need I want to press an eject button and get me out of here, you know what I mean?
mm,
But it's not coming. So it's like,
mhm,
well, what can I do to just keep pulling it back, pulling it back, pulling it back,
mhm.
and eventually it's there. It's been there the whole time, but we've never
Yeah,
seen it. So it's a visual, and from my own life, it's there, and that was why I had it made on my T-shirt. One of the first things I did when I sold the company,
yeah.
I made about 5 different T-shirts, and they were all my mantras.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to embody this. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to speak it. I'm not going to say. I'm going to embody it, and my actions are going to do the teaching, not so much what I say. Because we can all come on a podcast, right? We can all talk the talk, or we can read books, or we can do
Yeah.
things, but until we actually where the rubber meets the road, where the action choice points are,
Yeah.
is they are the critical components in our life. And like I say, nobody is coming to save you. That's the one thing I really think. But we're
Mm,
conditioned to that mentality because there's a whole in the whole systems are built upon this monetization
yeah.
of seeking outside of ourselves. And of
Yeah.
course I do. We need help. We see other experts and things,
Mm.
absolutely. But they should all be helping us develop ourselves, I feel.
Yeah, I think you're right. So you combined two of the phrases in your answer, which I love. But if we can go back to, what are some of the biggest pressure points in your life that helped you, evolve and become who you are? I mean,
Yeah,
I have to say, like you did ask us to help with like you were selling your house, so we tuned in, and there was so much heaviness in that house. I just looked at a photograph and
it's
I
my
thought,
childhood house I
yeah,
grew up in, right?
oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah, and I just thought, yeah, that childhood house in Wales, and the energy was just like, oh, heavy.
Hmm.
So that's a big lump of coal you came from.
Yeah, yeah,
So tell us a little
absolutely.
bit about how those experiences shaped your, I guess, like, do you think you were born with this tenacity or
I do.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
do it in some ways. It's
Yeah.
almost like I'm looking at things in a certain perspective, and there was enough resilience in there or strength,
Mm,
not ultimately for other people to squash it and dictate me back down. You know what I
mm,
mean? It's like
mm,
I don't know, as if like if you could go to the gym and you do enough reps in the gym, you become strong inside. There was like there was something in there, because
mm,
when you're born into an environment, just to paint people a picture, the village was a council estate. It's very working class. I grew up in poverty. Like I'm not saying, I mean, we
mm,
had electricity and water and
yeah.
things. It's fine, but everyone struggled financially. It was a recession. It was very
Mm,
rough, as when you're 10, 12, 14, kids are drinking alcohol in the bus shelters. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's a little community center. but that was my life. I didn't know anything outside of that. You don't in that. You don't know the heaviness or the you're in. I used to go out and, it'd be torrential winter, pouring down with rain, but as kids, you'd still be running around in it and playing it. You just kind of, you're these resilient little things. But as I started going into, I remember the pressure started to come in when I started going to high school.
Yeah.
None of it made sense. I was always top of my class in primary school. I was always like a little happy little kid in some respects, but none of it started to make sense. And I remember starting to just not go to school. My dad, by that time, was working away for most of my childhood. And that affected me in a deep way looking back. Not that I'm blaming him or anything. So when I was in my teens in school, I remember my school report coming back, and I attended less, like I spent more days out of school than I did in school. And I never passed one GCSE or anything. And my mum was mortified, but I was like, I was sinking inside. I remember starting to almost question everything then, like, what is going on? Nobody's happy. I'm not in a, everyone seems to be struggling. Everyone seems to be complaining. And I was questioning everything. And I'll never forget, Peggy, that, I ended up doing an apprenticeship plumber for 4 years, not knowing what plumbing was. I was working on a building site, and building sites can attract some pretty gnarly, rough characters in the valleys of Wales at the time anyway. And I'm just like, is this my life? What am I doing? But I had all these rooted unconscious beliefs that I was not worthy, that I'm never going to make anything of my life, because everyone else around me kind of accepted and surrendered into that reality. So there was a conditioned behavioral response in me thinking, am I ever going to get out of this? So that pain got so great. That was the first pressure point. And there was a perfect storm where I finished my apprenticeship in 1 week. I fell out with the rugby captain who I was playing rugby with. And my girlfriend was pressuring me to get engaged. And I just flipped, and and left. I just left Wales. I just jacked it all in literally a decision. I had a job opportunity to go and work in London, and I walked away, and then I could not come back. But I was even unhappier when I gone away, because all of a sudden my foundation, I didn't know anyone, the structures had gone, everything was gone. And I felt that's when I really started feeling lost. So that was the pressure.
Wow.
But because we didn't have internet back then, right? It's not like you can jump on. I didn't have anyone around me saying you should really start thinking about these philosophies or look in this direction or study that. I became like a leaf blowing in the wind, just trying to go, surely there are answers out there. And that's what I hang on to. There must be another way.
So what were the answers that you were seeking when you came to Australia?
I was running.
You were running. Yeah. Wow.
I was running from my problems.
Yeah. And how did you, and this is, so I've heard this story, and then you just worked a lot. So a lot of people don't understand that this workaholism is actually a form of escape, but it's sort of, it's, I guess people, value it because you're making money and you have the status and you can, so tell us a little bit about your transition into Sydney
so I immigrated at 30. I was happy to be here. And I remember I was working in the bars in Newtown. And I was studying to be a fitness trainer. That was my first protocol. And then I ended up working at Sydney Uni. And I was at the same time, I was going through a transition where I was listening to Wayne Dyer, listening to Deepak Chopra, listening to Eckhart Tolle. And I was listening to him on CDs. Tony Robbins had an influence on me at to really, they were all speaking a language that I wish I had friends and people around to guide me. And I just couldn't access them anywhere. Everyone thought I was like, the moment I even started to talk about it, I had only one or two very close friends that got it, but they didn't embrace it, but they got it and encouraged it. But the rest were kind of like, what the hell? What are you doing? None of it to them made sense. It's like, it's another avoidance way of life where it was far from it. I was trying to find myself. So that was going on. I was working in the fitness industry, and that was wonderful. But but I was learning to stock trade at the time, and I was employing that, and I'd borrowed money. So there was all this pressure, and I was really trying to make it all work. And I managed to keep it together for about 3 years until I got knocked over on my bike.
Oh.
And my girlfriend had been cheating on me. Like
Oh.
again, another little perfect
Oh.
storm of events to say, guy, you keep going down the wrong road. You're looking in the wrong
Mm.
place. It was almost like, we love your commitment, mate, but you can, I remember, I always think of the phrase, you can motivate an idiot, they just do dumb things faster. And I like, that was me, you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
like I'm just a fly hitting the glass here, and I only
Yeah,
had to go 3 inches to the left.
yeah.
So that was the catalyst of events, really, that made me stop the stock trading. I mean, I was living, honestly, Peggy, what people don't appreciate at that period in my time, I didn't have parents that could bail me out. I didn't have
Mm.
finances or anything. It was,
Mm.
you just got to make it work somehow.
Yeah.
And I was literally earning enough to pay rent and eat. That was
Wow.
it. That was it. And I had a push bike. And 5 days a week for about 5 years, I was cycling 12 kilometers each way out of hilly eastern suburbs of Sydney, rain, hail, or shine,
Wow.
every day. No matter how sore my body was, I couldn't afford to get sick. I couldn't afford to take time off. Couldn't afford to do anything. It was like, this was my life, and
Mm.
I've got to figure it out. So that it was a pressure that it can be just whole engulfing. It's like a state.
Mm.
It's like, you hear of tragedies and you hear of different things happen to people which are very attainable in instant, and you can almost go, oh my God. But when it's just this constant
Constant.
weight, just
Yeah.
slowly building and building and building, and it's almost like the unforeseen weight that can be happening.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. But that pressure taught me, and what I was learning through the Tony Robbins and the Wayne Dyers, and that was really to find the gratitude
Mm.
in these moments. And I actually really got to that place. I really did. And I
Yeah.
started to flip it in my mind to
Mm.
how wonderful it was to be out on a bike at 9 o'clock at night, cycling back from Sydney. And even in the rain, I never felt so alive in some
Yeah.
respects. When I'd watch people sitting on the bus, just with I mean, iPods were a thing at the time, and they would
Yeah.
all have their headphones in and just like
Yeah.
zombies. And I think, wow, I feel so alive. This is incredible.
Yeah.
And that dialogue, especially once I got hit by the car and stuff, and finally let the trading go, that really started to, I don't know, it was like another layer had come off, leaning into the supplement company, which actually ended up doing very well.
Yeah.
So,
It's still my favorite pea protein. I'm not going to lie.
oh,
I love it. I love it. I tell everybody about it.
yeah.
So I love the fact that you're just you've been programmed in a way of like through your childhood of this darkness and everything is bad and suffering and poverty and struggle and anger and you just through sheer tenacity you started to challenge your thoughts and then you found this liberation in just changing your thought and in your viewpoint about your bike your bike route for 12 kilometers. Why do you think what do people struggle about changing their thoughts about their situation? Like, I mean, this is to me, you got inspired by the same people that inspire so many people at their start of their journey. But some people can't actually take that advice and that information and then translate it into their daily practice. That's the rubber meets the road. You literally did that with your push bike, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two things I want to speak, and one I'll just pick up on that as well for people. Like, growing up in Wales was really hard, but I was fortunate I did have a lot of love in there,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So I want to, but it was freaking hard. I
yeah,
want to say that, and I still have a beautiful relationship with my mom to this day. I'm a sister, but my dad's
yeah.
passed. But on the other thing, the first word that came for why do people struggle? Because
Mm.
we're too comfortable.
Ah, yeah.
That's that's it. In a nutshell, it really is.
Mm.
There's when you think about um, even the work that we do, or if you went to spiritual teachings, or I haven't been to India, or I haven't lived in a monastery, but when you think about only the basic needs are met, there's a lot of things that are taken away and distractions. I've heard of different spiritual schools now where there's only cold water and you're up in the Himalayas or something, like,
Wow.
it's like to shower, there's, and you might have a bucket of hot water once a day. And all of a sudden, the privileges that we have in life or we take for granted actually start to mean something.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why is that we're so overstimulated in everything. There are so many distractions to keep us preoccupied. And it's uncomfortable to actually be with our thoughts. It's uncomfortable to be with our feelings and emotions. And then when the pain gets great enough, instead of us then starting to lean in to explore those, we go outside of ourselves and want somebody else to fix it and make it go away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember working at the uni, and there were a lot of, and I don't want to, I really do my best to judge, but there were a lot of kids from the North Shore of Sydney that grew up in, Double Bay and this and that. Beautiful people, don't get me wrong, right? But then you would see that there was an ease, and I remember, like, because I got to know so many people working at the uni. Oh, like, fuck me. Sorry if I swore.
It's okay.
I had everything, like, it's almost like all my identity was constantly getting stripped away, and this rawness in my life was constant.
Yeah.
To that degree in some respects, where I'm like, and then you don't sweat the small stuff anyway. You don't really worry about if cauliflower's gone up in the supermarket in price or petrol, all the stuff that people actually hook into and talk about, when it's like, does it really matter? Does it really matter? Like, what is it at the end of the day? And as hard as those years were, naturally now I look back and I can feel so much gratitude for it, because I was able to extract the wisdom from it. And when push come to shove, I made decisions that honored my heart, and they weren't done from fear. They were done from wanting something better for myself. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. It's a huge difference, isn't it, when you tap into that heart space and you're making decisions from your intuition and your heart. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people. Yeah, they make a lot of decisions out of fear. Now, your journey, Tony Robbins, that's all that's kind of mainstream. You have gone down the rabbit hole a number of times in your podcast. Tell me how going down the rabbit hole has changed your thinking about the nature of reality, about doing the work, all sorts of things.
Well, the thing is, right, we're very good, I think, as humans. We can be very suggestible and subject, and I always ask the question, is this shit for real?
Yes.
or is this just an interpretation of something? Like, it was really loud inside me. Like, are we really this multi-dimensional? Are we like photons of light? There's something far greater than we can comprehend that's all coming from source. Like, if you look at the wonders of the universe compressed into a physical body, an avatar per se, to experience this life. And is this a school that we get to grow our souls in and explore and learn and contribute to the unified field? These are kind of the things I'm reading and looking at, but I'd always ask the question, is this real? Because I think, because I had so much stripped away from my own identity, you kind of start to really want to question reality and be open to things and not let, like, there's so many times, I think, in life where your unconscious beliefs are just dismissing things because there's such a big cognitive dissonance to that reality to yours. You're like, you just dismiss it and move on and not even let it explore. So I wanted to become the explorer, and I think I got, it gave me purpose as well. Like, I think it gave me it allowed me to start to try and make more sense of why I was in the pain I was, or why I wasn't fitting in, or why I felt lonely, even though I had people around me, why I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't settle in any relationships and actually be content, or get a
Mm-hmm.
career and a job and be content with that and go and get a nice house. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
all these things. Um, so I wanted to become the explorer to a degree, because when I was a kid, I don't know if I would have mentioned on the podcast, but for listeners, I took a bunch of magic mushrooms. I must have been like 14 years old. I was hanging out with older kids and I didn't know what I was doing and I shouldn't have done it. And it freaked the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I hid in an abandoned cellar in a house, very dark house, in a dark cellar, laying there, tripping my balls off as a 14-year-old kid, curled up in the fetus position,
Wow.
just waiting for this thing to end. But I navigated myself through that as a 14-year-old kid. I didn't have any shaman holding space and making it all love and light and mung beans. I was in the darkest places you could think of, working my way through that. And I came out the other side of that thinking, well, that was strange. Like, holy moly, you know. And then as an adult, I would ponder back on those things thinking, wow. And then at the time, you know, there's a lot more information coming out with psychedelics and expansive states of consciousness and things like that, which got me then wanting to explore more, because I unknowingly I'd already had this kind of reference point, and there were different experiences as a kid that actually happened that sat with me. Like I remember seeing these beautiful divine beings coming up to my bedroom window
Wow.
in white, and I close it, I can still see them when I close my eyes, and that
Wow.
memory's been with me since I was 4 or 5 when it happened. And they would come
Incredible.
up to me and I remember they were waving and there was these beautiful loving beings.
Mm.
And I remember hearing voices that were really dark coming from the landing of my house,
Yes. Oh, that was just a
just
very,
clear, like scaring the shit out of me,
oh yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
I guess there's these experiences that were happening along the way. You kind of then go into your adulthood, but they're there, right? They
Yeah.
never, they're with you. So with those things, there's always been that openness to wanting to go to look up more. And
Yeah.
then it's like, well, what is it? Do I force it? Do you go chasing it? I started chasing it for a while. Look, you know, it becomes a distraction because then you can avoid the
Mm.
pains that you are
Yes.
living in your life. Like the human being is such a slippery, egoic,
Mm.
bloody, you know, it's like trying to pin jelly to the wall
Yeah.
half the time.
Well, it can be very addictive when you're accessing that beautiful bliss state and you actually just want to stay in that state of, you know, it's quite a beautiful feeling.
It is, but I was having like, it's almost like things were really accelerating for me though. Like I remember once I awoken that energy, that Kundalini energy within me, unknowingly, but it happened. There was a chain of events through different exploration modalities that made that occur. But then after that, you know, I'd wake up and I'd be out of my body.
Wow.
Although I would, I remember getting taken out of my body
Wow.
and like taken through the unit as if I traveled multiple universes and then shown myself,
Mm.
you know, to wake me up, like just get on with it, guy, kind of thing, and then thrown back in. Like there's been multiple times. I remember being shown things, being shown dark things as
Wow.
well, to see if I can transmute fear into love in these moments and actually,
Mm.
and then watch it dissipate, you know. So it was like these accelerated teachings started to happen for me to get my arse in gear to be doing what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
You know, it was kind of like obvious to me, but not to
Yeah.
everyone else. You know, and it's fascinating because as those experiences start to occur, you just keep going. I actually know absolutely nothing about this. I am such a small little piece of this vast
Mm.
puzzle, or
Mm.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy moly. And it's very humbling.
Mm.
Like, you know, when you start having those experiences, I've seen people brought to their knees
Yeah.
that are so wrapped up in their ego or think they got it all in the bag, and in a moment just can be just like boom,
So you
everything
actually,
changes.
yeah, I think your retreats kind of curate those experiences,
They
and
do.
they do. It's not, it's quite a so you know. I think people have to understand that there's a method, and I was one of the first cohorts. So I did two, just to the listeners, I've done two of your retreats,
Yeah.
and I was on the second one. You had like I think 6 days in the very, when you were up in Gamia, I think it is, and then
Yeah, you would have done 4 days, I think, at the time. Four
uh
days.
yeah,
Or did,
possibly. Yeah. No, it was I
yeah.
think, yeah, it was a 4-day retreat. And that was we were the second cohort of we had no itinerary, just to let listeners know. We had no idea what was happening. Every day it was to put us in out of our comfort zone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what is your what is I mean, without revealing too many secrets, because otherwise people then know what's happens in your retreats and then it doesn't serve the purpose. I guess overall, what is what are you trying to achieve when you bring people to your retreats?
Allow them to find their heart again, ultimately.
Yeah,
Find their own true divine, find the divinity within themselves that's already there.
yeah,
That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Because once it's almost like once you find that there's a flame in your heart. I always see it like you could, sometimes I close my eyes and just think of that diamond or the shining, radiant pink flame or something that's burning. And we are so governed by our heads because of the conditioning of life that we are disconnected from so much of ourselves, even though we think
mm,
we are, because we've told ourselves we are, and we're this wonder, and I'm the status, I've got these certificates, and I've gone and studied this. And some of the hardest people to get through are the healers that come to our events, mate.
yeah,
Because this because they're so freaking engrossed in their identity of it, because there was such a deep trauma of pain that led them into becoming a healer in the first place.
yeah,
But they haven't fully healed it, even though they've told themselves they have.
yeah.
Right.
I'm going to ask you that question is why do you think, why do you think some people heal? Do you think everybody can be healed? And what stops people from healing?
I think healing is an interesting word in itself,
Yeah.
and it's a hard one to answer unless we define healing.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe you could define healing for me because I think it's like it's yeah, so some people heal fast and some people. So what is healing? What does,
For me, it's almost like if you look at here, the word healing feels like an end result, and I don't think we're ever at an end result,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah.
When we start to break down the way I look at it is I have to keep things simple. I'm a simple guy, keep it simple. More
Yeah.
we complicate is, you can look at the physical aspects, there's emotional aspects, there's mental aspects, and then the
Mhm,
spiritual aspects of ourselves. If
mhm,
we start breaking down, we are a multidimensional being, and we start to look at these holistic aspects of it.
mhm.
And then we live in you know an extreme boot camp, if you like, of Earth. Like, when you think about it's an extreme sport, mate. Like it really is.
Yeah.
It's full on. And if we don't learn the rules of the game and equip ourselves accordingly, we're gonna get smacked around, really, in
Mhm.
many ways. And depending, what we're born into and the experiences we have and things like that. So there's so many things. So the way I look at it is then, we tend to just, unless we can see it and it's physical, then it's healed. If
Yeah.
that's gone, then it's healed. But it's like, well, what are the undercurrents of that?
Mm.
You know, for me, the physical is the last place it shows up,
Yeah.
right? As you would know. So,
Yeah.
so then,
Well, I would say that sometimes it shows up in the physical to point us to, yeah, you're right. It's true. It's
it's
the last
it's
line.
a
Yeah, that's
downstream,
right. You're absolutely right.
because
Yeah.
it's pointing us
Yeah,
to
that's
what
right.
needs to be healed. right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
so there's, but it's been beyond our awareness
Yeah.
for the last 30 years because we've been so fixated on my career or doing this or being a mom or a dad and the
Yeah.
kids. And, and now finally it's come into our awareness. And we're like, shit,
Mm-hmm.
why me? Why now? And then we go into the story and the dramas and all of the things and the default, like, as soon as there's pressure, you see what really is the makeup of a human being,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like Wayne Dyer would always say, it doesn't matter who squeezes the lemon, it what lemon juice is inside is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens to us. So
Mm-hmm.
in other words, I think, or I feel like my body is continually to evolve.
Yeah.
There's a term called dynamic homeostasis, meaning it can learn from it. And if our DNA is upgrading, if all these things that, especially in the spiritual circuits, are being spoken about, like I'm physically feeling change. I know I'm not the same guy I was 5 years ago or
Mm.
10 years ago. Like there are aspects, my connection to energy is increasing, right?
Mm.
My abilities are continually evolving and learning in different perspectives, and that's why I always try and stay in that humility. So I think there's a if we love ourselves enough, which is at the root of it all,
Mm.
to respect our bodies from that space of love,
Mm.
and then that's going to support that emotional aspect, that mental aspect, and that spiritual aspect. And then through the hardship, we live in a toxic environment.
Mm.
The body is constantly under pressure
Yeah.
to continue to heal and turn over. So it's like this forever ongoing process. And if people are listening to this with the mentality of, I'm just need to get this healed, I need to get my back pain fixed, I need to get this sorted out so I can just go back to doing what I do and what I'm gonna do, then you're missing the whole point.
Mm.
Okay. That's how
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
So
That's 100%. I work with clients all the time saying, well, what is the sort of the soul lesson here? What is it, what are you trying to learn from this back pain? It's not just this,
yeah.
it's like it's teaching you something. I wonder what are the key aspects of the earth game, like the rules you think of that? Because you talked about the rules of the earth game. What are the rules of the earth game that people just miss out on?
Oh, geez. I've never been asked that. I never well, one is I feel like we almost go through this 3D. I kind of like see this loop, this circle, right? We come
Yeah.
down from source, and there's a part of us that our soul needs to go through, and it really entrenches itself in the physical. And the more into the materialistic things we get caught up in and we can't do. But there's a point where the soul goes, I've had enough of that. Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. I wanted to know what chocolate tasted like. I've done these experiences. I've gone over, and then there's a remembrance
Mm.
and a journey back home to self.
Mhm.
So I think, but there's lessons in that. I kind of always have this vision of like when nerve endings, each and every one of us is an individual nerve ending of consciousness
Yeah.
to the unified field. And that unified field is like a giant database that's taking in the 8 billion nerve endings right now, or whatever people on the planet, and is experiencing the laws of duality that are constantly allowing the source to continue to expand and grow in an ever evolving universe, to move from disorder to more order.
Hmm.
And we, as in that, have been removed or gone through the what's the term, the veil of forgetfulness or whatever it might be, to experience this life. But then there's elements of that we then get to know and grow and have a
Hmm.
deeper understanding to it,
Yeah.
that is then feeding back. So we've got all these different scenarios, all these different elements, these different games that can be played on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And it's like we actually have free will.
Yeah.
We have a choice. It doesn't feel like it. It's almost like we're trapped in a golden cage
Hmm.
because we buy into and identify with such the materialistic things that we
Yeah.
from it. you
Yeah.
know?
So part of the one of the rules is that you have to remember who you are, or how would you describe? So I guess for me, like one of the rules would be that um or one of the key, things that people should is to surrender and trust the process. But also
Yeah.
the getting back to your heart space. So what stops people from getting to their heart space? I mean, you've seen this in your retreats because I mean, I've I appreciate your understanding of healing, and I get that because I look at it, you described it much better than me. I just say we're like an onion. We just keep peeling the layers, right?
Yeah.
And I liken it to like pass the parcel, in Australia, that is that game of, you like pass the parcel
Yeah,
and you go,
yeah,
oh, there's
yeah.
another little nugget that comes out. You think you're okay, but then you got this new little prize, and I call it a prize, but we have to like deal with that. And it's never ending. So, even as the work that I'm doing, I'm constantly having to upgrade and heal and release. And I forgot the train of my question, but
So the heart space,
yeah,
what
the heart
stops
space.
them?
Yeah, what stops people from accessing their heart space?
So I can speak, yeah, I can speak from my vantage point, from my own experience and what I witnessed. So from my vantage point, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know how to get
Ah,
there.
yeah.
Like I like when people speak about metaphorically the heart space and listening to your heart and moving from your heart. As a guy, it's like, yeah, what the fuck's that mean? Like, you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
females, are much more open and creative and flowy, and where we have much more, line structure and yeah, right, okay. But then when I started actually physically having movement of energy, I could feel my heart aching and starting to
Mm,
open, like
mm,
literally energetically open.
mm,
And it's like, holy shit, this is real. Haha, now I get this. Now I know
mm,
what you're on about because I'm
mm,
experiencing it.
mm,
And through elevating an emotion, through bringing an awareness, because our awareness is so externally focused
mm,
on all of the things outside of ourselves. But if we close our eyes and bring our awareness to where we want to direct our intent, the most two powerful things that you could actually master, and then the awareness and intent, and then bringing that intent of love and gratitude into the moment of the things that we have, it's actually able to start to shift and heal the energetic heart space.
absolutely.
And the heart being the center of the chakra system, three above, three below, it's where it's at, baby. It's like, get it moving and you will
Yeah.
start to heal other aspects of your body. And
Mm,
the heart being the largest center, it's probably the easiest one to get moving first. Hence why we focus on the heart in our one days,
mm,
and are heavily obviously at the retreats as well.
mm.
But we have no, the answer can be 2 inches to our left, but right, but with that fly button against the glass, and if nobody goes, hey, you just need to do this, mate,
Yeah.
right, just tap across here and give that a go for a while. But I don't know, like, so we're in our heads, everything's in our heads. We're so conditioned to be in our heads. You read so many different books that say the longest journey is the shortest one. It's a few inches below your noggin. All you
Yeah.
need to do is look down and it's there.
Mm,
So until I started to actually have that experiential experience and do and connect to it, and people are so terrified in a way of going there because their whole identity is wrapped up in their story.
yeah.
We are so, and we don't even know it. And the
Yeah.
moment we start to go there, the body is an individual mammal. You got to start thinking of your body like you're riding a wild stallion and you're on it. Your consciousness, the photons of light, is it creating a relationship with the body.
Mm,
I think that's where we fall down.
yeah.
And once you start to understand that, actually, oh, hey, easy, tiger, the stallion starting to buck and kick because it doesn't like where it thinks it's going to go, because it's created a mechanism of safety, and it's identified itself. This is how I keep myself safe and you safe from any harm.
Yeah.
And that could be from the circumstances of your childhood that you don't even remember that have happened. And that is all in the programming of the body. That is
Yeah.
held. That is the traumas. And that is influencing how we visualize the world. A Course in Miracles states a miracle is a shift in perspective. That's it. And we're all after the miracles in our lives, but we think it's far greater, where it's actually the shift in perspective. The paradigm shift changes everything.
Yeah.
So getting people, when people come and, in fairness, not 95% of all participants show up wanting to change and they're ready to do the work. Because if you're not, you're just dead wood. Like, what's the point in being there? Like, it's affecting everything. They're just like, if they can step into that and trust it enough, then we can guide people there. It's not hard what we do, but you got to start overcoming yourself. The body's going to be addicted. It's like anything else. Try quitting sugar. Try quitting, changing a few things. The body starts craving. Well, your thoughts are no different. We're chemically dependent upon the way we think.
Yeah. It's amazing. And that 5%, I think, I wonder if those are the people that, the wives bought the retreat for them, or they're bringing along their sister, or they get there and it's just way too confronting and they haven't even dealt with, some of their own. It just doesn't feel safe to connect in that room, or.
It's challenging. I think there's definitely a level of being on the path. And look, so we have people that have never touched this work before, but if they're solid within themselves and just go, yeah, I'm open, and let's jump on the bobsleigh and see where it takes us, then fantastic. Like, we had a gentleman come to our Bali retreat, and he was new to it all, and his partner came. They flew from the States, beautiful couple, but he was like, no, I'm curious, I'm open, and he by day 4, I saw that look in him that I had 10 years ago, where he was just like a rabbit in the headlights. The energy the Taurus had fully opened. It was pouring out of him. And he was like, oh my God. Right. Welcome to the club, mate.
What a privilege. Oh, Guy, I could speak to you for hours. I would love to ask you another 10 questions. I would love, you know what, but I know we were running out of time and you've got to go to another meeting, but I really wanted to ask you, as a dad, because, one of the things when I was listening to your podcast, listening to Bruce Lipton especially, and I thought, oh shit, I've screwed up my kids, but you had this privilege of becoming a dad after you have all this awareness. What do you see? I want to end on this because I can see your heart space already get bigger just speaking about it. How has this work influenced with your children?
Well, first of all, ask my kids in 20 years and see what they say.
Yeah.
It's massive. It is massive. Like, and don't get it wrong, I'm by far not the perfect parent. This is new terrain to me. Like, we're figuring this shit out as we go along. But what I witness and what I've gone through has opened my heart in a way that it couldn't be possible unless those things have happened. And I had to find myself before I could really start a family. And that is one thing I am so grateful for, even meeting my wife, until I found myself, like, none of it was work. And then once everything opened up, I met my wife, and then we've gone down this road and we've had kids. So it's like, I'm in this place where I really feel it, and I feel my children and I see them. And every day for me is that heart space miracle. It really is. Like, and yes, they wind me up, and I catch myself, and I'm, I'm from Wales, so F-bombs come out and things like, I still look at me like, Daddy, will you swear? But the main thing I think is to know that I do my best in holding a container for them. They got boundaries, of course, but I always want them to feel loved and feel that connection and feel safe enough that they're happy, and it's blossoming out of them slowly but surely.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful.
But it's hard. It's really hard. Like, obviously I know what I know into, like, I worked in the health space, nutrition space, obviously this space. And, it's like I said, the world's an extreme sport. And now my kids are starting to, especially my daughter, she's coming into the phase now where there's different kids parties and different things. And people have absolutely no awareness around the foods they feed the children and doing these things. And it's like, wow, there's a conflict of values here. And it's like, shit, how do I now navigate this?
Oh,
It's
that's a hard one. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And as parents, we're all doing our best. I really do
Yeah.
believe that. Just from different vantage points, I guess, where
Yeah.
we are on our own journeys.
And then when
Yeah.
they're teenagers, they'll trigger you even more to more spiritual awakening.
Wow, I don't doubt it
It's
at all. I'm
fun.
not kidding myself in the slightest, mate. I tell you.
Oh, I tell you what, that's been the biggest learning curve of
Yeah.
how do you start to love yourself is when your teenagers are just throwing it right in your face all the time. But tell the audience a little bit about your offerings and what you've got coming up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, our offerings, we do so we do introductory events, we've started bringing in an advanced one as well. So like we do full days now, 4 hour blocks in the morning, 4 hour blocks in the afternoon, if you choose to do both. And we even get into group energy healing in the afternoon. We just did our first one in Sydney, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
Wow.
Some of the results we got back from it as well. So that's a gateway in. And then if people want to take it further, we have retreats, which are 5 days. I think we've ran 28 now, and they're constantly evolving. We just got back from Bali. We got one in June, which is sold out, but we got one in September 2025. That's our last Australian one. And then we'll be in Croatia if anyone wants to join us, in Split in November.
Incredible.
So that's all there. We have free meditations online if people want to do it as well. But I'm sure people listening to your podcast and audience are down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. They're down, but sometimes I think people need those basic tools because they're often
Ah,
just, as we spoke about it, they wait 2 or 3 months to see somebody, they attend these groups or they have a session. But the daily stuff is what they, to change their thinking and change their programming and that sort of reprogramming those subconscious beliefs and the victim, and all that.
yeah.
That's the hard work.
It's the work, right? It's where the
Yeah.
rubber meets the road. They keep
Yes,
saying it.
exactly.
It-
Yeah.
you-
Yeah.
if there's one message I want to leave everyone listening to this, like the greatest healers are the ones that work on themselves, like in terms of that healing. And healing is a 24-hour job. Like nobody is going to come and save you. You have to take radical responsibility for your own actions. As somebody said to me once, asked me, I know people that meditate and they're still dickheads. And I was like, you're right. It's because
Yes.
the true act of this work is what you do with your eyes open for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So it's awareness is being aware, constant. It's refining that, So we gotta do that, take responsibility for ourselves and incorporate it into our daily lives. And then explore the modalities that you teach, that I teach, and that we're doing. And all of it combined will take you on a journey far greater than you could ever imagine. But if we're just waiting for this to happen or waiting for that to happen and wait till I get there, it's like, well,
Yeah.
what about between now and then? What can you be doing differently? What
Yeah.
choices can you be doing differently?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Spend 5 minutes and just sit in your heart space and think about things that you're grateful for. Yeah.
it's there. But I think the hardest thing is sometimes we don't want to invest in ourselves too much. We get caught up in the story of ourselves, and maybe we're not. Maybe there's a belief in there somewhere that it's okay for them, but this will never happen to me, and things like that. But the way I see it is, we're all human beings. Yes, we're all individual, but mechanistically, we all respond in similar ways as well. So it's like this is there for all of us for the taking if we choose to take it and go after it. You know.
Beautiful words. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
No,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for everything you do. And I really appreciate your time because I know you're so busy and we're just a small little show, but I really appreciate your words of wisdom. And I hope people have found some inspiration about the actions that they need to take to get onto their own healing journey.
Loved it. Thank you so much, Peggy.
Okay. Thanks again.